Hi everyone, hope you're all doing good. Okay, so this is the third round draw for the 38th edition of the Tapology Lucky Bastard Game. In this third round, we are now down to 12 people from, I think it was 28 we had in the last round. We're now down to 12 here. So let's see just remind ourselves rather, who our dozen lucky bastards are. Um, they are A laugh my ass off and AZ, Calfoth, D1, D4, K10, Damien Handel for 20. It's your boy SB, Jack Soto, Love Song, the MMA historian, Trail, Trig, Trostradamus, the first of our two alliances still left in this game, and Uber Industry, of course, the other one, the German alliance, of course. And for this round, we have UFC Fight Night from Baku, Azerbaijan. Headlined by Rafael Fiziev, obviously a hometown fighter, and Manuel Torres. And um, it's quite an interesting matchup here because on paper Fiziev's record looks quite bad, but it really isn't. It really is, or at least recent form looks quite bad. Um, I should add, but it really isn't that bad when you break it down because he's lost four of his last five. Um, but two of those losses being to the new lightweight champion Justin Gaethje, but and both of them went the distance as well, so he didn't get stopped by Gaethje in either of them, which is two losses that are going to age very well for him. Um, so yeah, I think it's a bit misleading going on his recent form, but having said that, one thing that is certain is Manuel Torres is knockout power. It's the uh, main talking point of the main event for me. Knocked out Grant Dawson in his last time, and uh, it's uh, yeah, like I say, he finishes most of his fights early by knockout power, as you've seen recently. He gets quite a few by sub as well, but uh, for me, even though Fiziev is tough to finish, it's I was really my main line of thinking for when making a prediction in this fight is a case of like Fiziev is obviously very tough. How well can he stand up to Torres's power? Can he go the distance over 5 rounds? I wasn't quite sure if he'd do it over 5 rounds, so I've gone with a fourth round knockout for Manuel Torres here. But wouldn't be surprised if Fiziev does just hang in there and go the distance. Um, but anyway, you're not here to listen to my predictions. You're here to see who you're going to be drawn with for this round. So got the wheel ready here, uh, ready to cause some more mayhem, no doubt. So uh, first is A, or A, laugh my ass off an AZ, however you want to pronounce it. Let's see who he gets for the third round. And A gets Nazim Sadikov. Nazim Sadikov there for A, laugh my ass off an AZ. In what I refer to as the tertiary main event, the third one down from the top, or the one for the co-main event. So I've got Sadikov to win by second round knockout against Mateus Camilo. Um, Sadikov again fighting in his home country of Azerbaijan, so he's going to have the home crowd behind him, which could be a huge psychological boost for him. Knocked out Faraz Ziem in his last fight, and is that was knocked out by Faraziem, I should add. Sorry, misspoke there. But and that was his first loss since 2018. So it shows how consistent he had been up until that point. Whether or not that's going to have um, a negative effects on him psychologically, but I don't think it will, to be honest. He had a loss on his record before that he's come back from, and also a draw during that time. Um, that's against Vyacheslav Borshev. One thing this card has made me realise there are a lot of names I'm gonna butcher here. There's a lot of Eurasian names I'm going to absolutely butcher the hell out of. So apologies to all these fighters on this card in advance. Um, as for Matthias Camillo, though, far less experienced in terms of in terms of UFC experience. He's only had two fights in the promotion, one lost one. Um, he won the last one, admitted, which coincidentally was against Vyacheslav Borshev, who was Sadikov drew against a few years back. So I suppose if you're doing it sort of MMA maths like that, I mean head-to-head records, you'd argue Camilo would have the advantage, but MMA doesn't work like that. And for me, Sadikov's power is just going to be too much for Camilo. Second round knockout there for Sadikov, so I think A's got a decent chance here of getting through to the hypothetical fourth round. Okay, so just check we did actually we didn't actually put the screen back onto. There we go. But yeah, just to confirm there, A with Nazim Sadikov. So next is Kalfoth. Let's see who Kalfoth is going to be paired with. And he gets Abdul Rahman Yakhayev. Yeah, apologies for butchering that one as well. Um, this is going to say Abdul. How are we spelling that? Rakh man. Rakh man. It's not even going to fit on the little box I've made for this, is it? Yakh uh, Yaeb. Just about fits. Abdul Rahman uh, Yakhayev for Kalfoth, and I can only apologise to him and every other Turkish person in the world. Congratulations on beating the United States in the World Cup, by the way. That's you done the world a solid with that one. But yeah, apologies for butchering Abdul's name there. Um, for the sake of diplomacy, it's probably best to just stick calling him Abdul. But joking aside, Abdul is no joke. 9-0, still undefeated, obviously. 2-0 in the UFC. 2-0 in ACA, the Russian-based promotion. Um, and he submitted Brandon Ribeiro last time out. And again, all action fighter looks for submissions or knockouts, usually early submissions or knockouts. Obviously, still early days yet. He's still this is only going to be his 10th fight in his career. So obviously, he's not been fighting the highest level of opposition. That is a slight caveat with that. But then again, I would say he has fought better opponents in his career so far than his opponent tomorrow night, Julius Walker. Julius Walker, 1-2 in the UFC, arguably fighting for his job potentially. 7-2 overall in MMA. So no more experience than Abdul is. Um, got knocked out by Justin Jacoby last time out, and he usually looks for first round knockouts, but he's just not on the same level as Abdul, in my opinion. And I think that this is very much a sort of a setup in favour of Abdul. That uh, bit of action on the card, um, guaranteed knockout for, if not the home fighter. I don't know if he trains out of Azerbaijan or what, but is a lot closer to home than a lot of fights on this card. Certainly a lot closer to home than Julius Walker is anyway. So I'd expect the home crowd to get behind him a bit. Um, but yeah, in any case, um, this is going to be a fairly easy win. I'd imagine. So Calfoth has uh got quite a good pick there, I reckon. I think Calfoth is obviously nothing certain in the MMA, certainly not in this game, but about as good as a pick you can hope for on this card. Okay, so we move on now to uh, D1, D4, K10. Let's see who D1, D4, K10 gets paired with. And he gets one of the scariest looking fighters on the card, Sharia Magomedov. Sharia Magomedov there for D1, D4, K10. Uh, in the co-main event against Mikkel Pereira. Um, Obviously a big golfing experience between the two of them. Mikkel Pereira, 32 wins, 14 losses in his career, 10 and 5 in the UFC. Sharia Magomedov, 16 wins, 1 loss in his career, 5 and 1 in the UFC. Um, in his last fight, it was a unanimous decision win against Marc-Andre Barriault, um, which was a bit of a surprise, to be honest, because he's normally a knockout artist. And I think if I go back to my prediction at the time, I'd have been expecting Magomedov to knock out Barriault. So I mean, fair play to Barriault for going the distance with someone as dangerous as Magomedov. But for me, this is if that was my prediction before, I'm sticking with a similar prediction for this one. The first round knockout for Magomedov. Um, is interesting though is that his ground game is going to be a potential weakness, I'd say, because he's never actually won or lost a fight by submission, Magomedov. Um, every single one of his uh wins anyway has come by knockout. So against Mikkel Pereira, that is potentially um something that could cost him because he's obviously Pereira is known for his unorthodox striking, but he's experienced enough that he should know that, or should have seen, um, uh, this potential gap in Magomedov's skill set, and that potential path to victory would be via the ground, by a submission, maybe. Magomedov, of course, not a bad grappler, but I wouldn't rate him as well. I wouldn't really rate him as any more than an average grappler, if I'm being completely honest. But primarily a kickboxer, really, and there's still so so yeah, that's a potential path to victory for Pereira. But um, for me, Magomedov is should avoid it going to the ground in the first place. Just uh, getting there early before Pereira's got any chance of building up any kind of momentum, getting into the fight, and just ending the fight before Pereira's got a chance to get into it. Just before he has a chance to establish any kind of composure, any kind of ground game, or got a real feel for Magomedov's potential weaknesses firsthand. But D1, D4, K10 should be fairly confident overall, despite that slight asterisk there. Okay, Damien Handel, 420 next to learn his fate. Let's see who the duck is going to be getting. And he gets Daniil Donchenko. Daniil Donchenko for Damien Handel, 420. It's a funny one, is it? Like double I. Donchenko. Yeah, Danil Donchenko there for Damien Handel 420. Um, he's well, one of the early ones on the card up against Theodore Bergen. Um, Donchenko, the more experienced of the two, 13-2 in his career. Bergen 8-3 by comparison. Um, Donchenko already having a couple of fights in the promotion, winning both of them. Also 1-0 in ONE FC, interestingly. Whereas for Bergen, this is his UFC debut. Um, so for Donchenko, he's won a unanimous decision against Alex Morono, who's management. He's must have been in a promotion forever. Uh, I can't remember how long Alex Morono's been around for. He's I feel like he's probably pops up every couple of months on a card for for the last 20 years. uh, I remember him already being a fair bit of a veteran in the Reebok days of the UFC. So but anyway, it's losing the plot a bit there. He's not on this card for Morono, but as I was saying about Donchenko, um, knockout artist again. That seems to be a recurring theme for a lot of the fighters on this card. I think you find is that we're going to see. I think we're going to see a lot of striking action on this card. Um, a lot of stand-up battles, and it's just a question for me of how long this one lasts. I think, to be fair, that Donchenko might actually have a bit of a tough matchup against Theodore Bergen. I'm still expecting him to win, but I've gone by decision because Bergen, even though we've not seen him in the UFC, we haven't quite seen him at this level yet. He is 5-2 in FCR Fight Club Rush, which for anyone not familiar with Fight Club Rush is it's a Nordic promotion, uh, arguably the biggest in the Nordic region. It's uh, if you take any fighter in the UFC, who's from Norway, Sweden, uh, Finland, Denmark, Iceland, there's a good chance they've had a fight in Fight Club Rush. So it's a serious regional promotion. Um, they've also produced quite a lot of talent that's gone on into Cage Warriors as well. They seem to have quite a good relationship with Cage Warriors, especially when Cage Warriors are hosting a card in Europe. Uh, they'll um, uh, they'll often feature a fighter from one of the Nordic countries, even in the UK sometimes. So they make the trip over and fight on their London cards, and so it's a decent promotion, is what I'm saying. So the fact that he's gone 5-2 in Fight Club Rush, that shows he's he's not just some random fighter they've picked out of Northern Europe uh, to be an opponent for Donchenko. He's going to come here, give it a serious fight, and um, looks fairly well rounded from what we've seen of him so far. And uh, I don't think he's good enough to beat Donchenko, but I think he definitely is going to be a tougher opponent than a lot of people are expecting. But for the purposes of the game, it doesn't really matter, obviously, how it happens. Obviously, as long as Donchenko wins one way or another, Damien Handel will be happy. So that's the main thing, really. That's the main thing. I'm expecting Donchenko to win. And to be honest, the wheel's been kind so far. So there's 12 of you. We've gone through four of them. We're a third the way through, and all four so far I'm predicting to win. So let's see if we can keep up this streak. Maybe all 12 of you can go through. No, assuming I'm right around predictions anyway. Right. Next, it's your boy SB. Let's see who it's your boy SB is going to be paired with. Oh, speaking of Theodore Bergen, uh, Theodore Bergen is for it's your boy SB. Gives us our first. Oh shit! What's going on here? Uh, gives the first Theodore uh Berggren. Probably butchered the spelling on that. Apologies to him. Probably butchered the pronunciation too. Right. As I just mentioned, obviously 5-2 in Fight Club Rush, which is as I say, a serious promotion. Nothing to be sniffed at. That records in a promotion of that caliber. So, um, as I said, I don't expect him uh to beat Donchenko, admittedly, but he will put up a good fight. Um, the only and as I've mentioned before, he's uh in terms of going the distance, he's never actually won by decision yet in his career. Lost a few couple by decision, but he's never actually won by decision yet. So if it does go the distance, I'd expect him to be on the wrong end of it against Donchenko there, who's for my money just going to be um, yeah, just going to be a bit too skilled for him, just a slight level above there. But that's our first head-to-head for the game anyway. Damien Handel with Donchenko, and it's your boy SB with Theodore Berggren. First one, I think that he's going to potentially lose, but uh, it's an early contender for a potential unofficial Lucky Bastard Game main event anyway. Okay, Jack Soto is next. Let's see who Jack Soto is going to be paired with. Macias Camilo. Macias Camilo there for Jack Soto. So that's another head-to-head right there, actually. Macias Camilo. Uh, it was who was it at Sadikov? It was yeah, A right at the start who had Sadikov against Camilo. So that's A versus Jack, Sadikov versus Camilo. And in the tertiary main event, um already mentioned I'm expecting Sadikov to win by second round knockout. But as I said before, Camilo um coming off that win against Borshev, and he looks fairly well rounded. I wouldn't say he's an exceptional MMA prospect so far, but he is a decent fighter and can certainly hold his own. Um, but the thing is, it's quite surprising is that he's all of his losses so far have been by submission. Um, but that's not to say he's necessarily bad on the ground, it's because he's actually won a couple by submission as well. So not quite so you never quite know what you're going to get with him on the ground, but certainly decent grapplers will have their way with him. But Sadikov isn't really that kind of threat, really. I think Sadikov will still try and keep it standing, um, if possible, and I'm still expecting him to win by knockout. So Sadikov by knockout, second round. That's my prediction for that one. Uh, but yeah, that's another two head to heads so far anyway. Um, in the in this game. Right. Uh, next up is Love Song. Let's see who Love Song is going to be matched with. And that's Theodore Berggren for Love Song as well. So definitely shaping up to be our Berggren, our Lucky Bastard Game main event. That one, Berggren versus Donchenko. Um, yeah, not an awful lot more I can add about the Swede here. Um, other than that he's decent prospect, but Donchenko, I'm still expecting him just to be a little bit too tough for him. But I am expecting Berggren to uh be able to withstand what Donchenko can throw at him. So um, he's gonna make a good account for himself, and he'll definitely win more fans up this fight. I'm sure of that. Uh, so, but well, I suppose it's all consolation, really, isn't it, for this game? In this game, all that matters is whether you win the fight, and we've now got that 2v1 now, and the two are on the side of the fight that I don't think is going to win, unfortunately. So who is it? It's Love Song and It's Your Boy SB on Berggren and Damien Handel on Donchenko. But definitely shaping up to be the unofficial main event for this round. Okay, so moving on now to the MMA historian. Let's see what the wheel serves up for the MMA historian. And it's Jefferson Nascimento for the MMA historian. Jefferson Nascimento. Uh, so it's just adjusting the fan behind me at the moment here. Um, Absolute boiling at the moment. Right. Anyway, so Jefferson, uh, uh, Jefferson Nascimento on the opening fight of the card against. Oh, this is a good name. Tahir Abdullayev. Again, apologies to Tahir for butchering the name there. Um, Nascimento, 13-0, prospects, making his UFC debut. You'd be familiar with him from LFA, where he's undefeated champion there, 6-0. Became the champion, won the belt in his last fight. And like I say, he's so far looks very well rounded. Can go the distance as well, so he's got the stamina to put up with 3 rounds of action. Abdullev also making his UFC debut. 21-3 in his career, so a lot more experience. But looking over his records, there aren't really any standout promotions or fighters on his records I can really point to say, yeah, that's actually a great win. So, um, for me, the 6 fights in the LFA is a lot more impressive than Abdullev's record, even though Abdullev has got the more wins, and it is a very impressive looking record on paper. I think we'd probably have to look a little bit closer into that record to try and establish just how good he really is. So obviously we'll learn a lot more about him tomorrow night. Um, but yeah, uh, for me, I'm going with Nascimento for a decision win here. Probably safe prediction, but uh, maybe he can finish Abduliev. But you think with that many fights alone, even if they're not against the best opposition, Abduliev will be able to withstand uh, what Nascimento throws at him. You'd expect, but we'll find a way of weathering the storm anyway. But Nascimento for for a decision is my prediction there, and one I'm relatively confident in. I don't think he's going to be losing his O tomorrow night. Trail is next. Let's see who Trail is going to be matched with by the wheel. Charles Johnson for Trail there. Much easier name to pronounce. Uh, Charles Johnson is Trail's pick. Uh, well, the one that the wheels picked for Trail. Obviously, Trail didn't choose Michael Johnson, Charles Johnson. Michael, was it? Well, okay, completely muddled there. No, Michael Johnson. There's a name from the past. Charles Johnson, um, UFC veteran at this point, and one of the few you can really say to as a flyweight. Oh yeah, he's really, yeah. I suppose he's like the ultimate gatekeeper at flyweight in the promotion, and no bad thing. Every division needs one. Um, we're going up against Asu Almabayev, who's sort of talking to climbing the rankings. So he's certainly doing that at flyweight. Um, to be honest, I think Asu Almabayev could probably be fighting nearer the top end of the rankings, but it's not a bad matchup to be fair. And Charles Johnson is going to put up a hell of a fight as he always does. He's not going to make it easy for um, Alan Bayev. Uh, his last Alan Bayev's last win was the submission win against Alex Perez, of course. And that's how he looks to finish most of his fights by submission. But I'm confident Johnson's going to be able to withstand that. He's had well plenty of fights in his career, 14 alone in the UFC. So 8-6 records in the UFC. So there's not many fighters these days that can. I'm sure if you tell most fighters when they sign for the promotion that they'll have over 10 fights in the UFC, they'll be delighted to hear that. Uh, so fair play to Charles Johnson, and the UFC is always going to need fighters like him, but I just don't think he's getting a win here. Which ultimately for well, for semantics aside, ultimately for the purposes of this game, you need to win, and I would be very surprised to see Charles Johnson get the win here, which is bad news for Trail, unfortunately. Okay, so we move on to Trig. Okay, let's see who Trig is going to be paired with. And Trig gets Farman Hassanov. Farman Hassanov for Trig. Hassanov. There we go. And, up against Eric Nolan. Um, Hassanov, very green. Probably the is like I say, he's making his UFC debut. 5-0. Looks good so far, but as I say, only 5 fights into his career. Very, very hard to tell at this stage how he's going to fare at UFC level. I still picked him to win by decision against Eric Nolan, who's a little bit more experienced, 8-4 in his career. He lost his UFC debut. Nolan lost that UFC debut by submission to Basinger Susukayev in his last fight. Again, apologies for butchering that name as well. Nolan, though, is not a bad fighter at all. Former CCFC champion. Went 8-3 in that promotion, so he's not a bad fighter. Just so far hasn't quite looked UFC level, but I think if he loses to Hassanov, maybe we can definitely say uh, with a little bit more certainty that he's not quite the UFC level yet, but uh, not a bad fighter by any means. And Hassanov, though, he's looked decent in LFA, where he went 3-0 there. Got technical knockout last time against Abdul Rahman Fazalov, who was he's a very good prospect himself, was 6-0 at the time of the fight. So uh, that is, though, to be fair, that I would say probably the standout of his career so far. So he did prove he's worthy of a shot at the UFC with that, but um, yeah, it's too early to say how well he's going to do, but he should get past Eric Nolan here. And for Drake, for this game, for this round, that's going to be enough. That's all that really matters. Okay, Trostradamus, the first of our two alliances. The two alliances, coincidentally, because they're by alphabetical order, are the last two to go to be drawn. So Trostradamus, of course, the third resurrection of the third version of Tros and Costradamus's alliance. And this is one of their more successful runs. Off the top of my head, I'm not even sure if Trostradamus made it to a third round before. I'd certainly not be on that stage, I don't think. I could be wrong, though. But let's see who Trostradamus get paired with. And Gene Matsumoto for Trostradamus. Already come up, of course. And as I've mentioned before, oh, wait, not Gene Matsumoto. Hang on, let me just check that. Yeah, I was thinking Nascimento. That's what I was getting muddled with. Um, Similar names. Got to be careful about that. But yeah, no, I was getting muddled with Jefferson Nascimento though. No, but uh, Gene. They just call him Gene. Gene Matsumoto there for Trostradamus. So yeah, Trostradamus with Gene Matsumoto, not Jefferson Nascimento, Gene Matsumoto. Um, Still, I was confident in Nascimento, and I am confident in Matsumoto as well. Um, I've got Matsumoto to win by decision against Beksat Al-Makan. Uh, this is a horrible card for me in terms of trying to pronounce names right, but anyway, Matsumoto already certainly got a foothold in the UFC. Uh, 3-2 in the UFC so far. 17-2 in his career, so he's certainly an established fighter. He's lost a very close split decision against Farid Basharat last time out. Um, Usually looks for his submissions as his main modus operandi. That's he'll always try and take. That's how he tries to win fights. Try and get the fight to the ground if he can. Uh, Try and finish you there. If it ends up, or if it inadvertently ends up on the ground. Never been stopped in his career. Two losses, but never stopped. And as I say, we could make the argument he potentially won that fight against Basharat last time out. I'd have to rewatch it, but to be honest, I think from what I recall of it, Basharat did win that. But I'd have to go back and rewatch it with more recent eyes to confirm that. But um, as for his opponent, Beksat Al Makan, 1-2 in the UFC, again potentially up fighting for his job, losing UFC records. Lost a unanimous decision against Alexandre Topuria, the recently dethroned lightweight champions, Ilia Topuria's younger brother, of course. And um, more of a knockout threat rather than the submission threat. So the old-fashioned UFC clash of styles there, the grappler versus the striker, so to speak. But quite a patient knockout artist as well, to be fair. Because when I usually refer to fighters being a knockout artist, I usually refer to them finding a finish within a round or two. Well, within a round usually. But Al Khan, a patient killer, he's happy to take his time, find that spot in later in the fight in the second and third round, which given I've picked Gene Matsumoto to win by decision, that's quite a dangerous prediction because Al Khan always remains a threat even in the later stages of the fight, and that's a skill that's a sort of a danger that a lot of fighters just don't actually have. When you think about it, there's a lot of fighters who think the longer this goes on, the worse it's going to be for them. But Bekzat Al-Makan he's in it right the whole way through, right the whole way through the fight, and so that is slight worry potentially for Matsumoto, but I think Matsumoto should be all right for the most part here. So Nostradamus, not a certainty, but a good chance getting through to a fourth round, which might be unprecedented for them. And finally, Uber Industry, the German alliance between Ubermatch and Schwer Industry, of course. Uh, long-standing alliance. They came together once, never split up. Um, so that's, I suppose, from that sense, possibly our most successful. Well, not most successful, given Jordan and Pippin won one of these games, but most, well, oldest alliance anyway. Anyway, Uber Industry. Let's see what the German alliance is blessed with. And Nazim Sadikov. Um, right where it all started, I believe. It was A who got Sadikov right at the start. So start the video with Nazim Sadikov, end the video with Nazim Sadikov. Um, Sad Khov. Probably not spelling that right. But as I've mentioned, hometown fighter against Macias Camilo. Uh, Already fairly well established in the UFC. 4 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw. Um, I'll say coming off the back of that knockout loss, but I think he's got the mentality to bounce back from that quite easily. Um, Against someone, in my opinion, I think is stoppable. Uh, Even though Camilo's never actually been knocked out, to be fair to him, uh, I think Sadikov might be the one to change that state tomorrow night. So Sadikov by second round knockout in front of the home crowd cheering him on. Uh, and yeah, that's quite a nice way to wrap up the video, actually. Go back to the fighter we started with. Um, and also gives, in my opinion, Uber Industry a good chance of getting through. So I think we're probably going to have a decent number of you getting through here. Okay, so that concludes the third round draw for the 38th edition of the Tapology Lucky Bastard game. So let's just go through these one more time just to remind ourselves who they've been drawn with. There's a few overlaps and double ups and head to heads, so I won't go through all the permutations trying to work it out now. Too hot to try and use any brain power like that. So just make sure we're on even on the PowerPoint to start with. Yep. So A with Nazim Sadikov, Kalfoth with Abdul Rahman Yakayev, D1, D4, K10 with Sharia Magomedov, Damien Handel for 20 with Daniel Donchenko. It's your boy SB with Theodore Bergeron, Jack Soto with Matthias Camillo, Love Song also with Theodore Bergeron, the MMA Historian with Jefferson Nascimento, Trail with Charles Johnson, Trig with Farman Hasanoff, Trostradamus with Gene Matsumoto, and Uber Industry with Nazim Sadikov. So, I think that yeah, as I said just a second ago, I think quite a few of you be getting through here. Actually, I'll be very surprised if the game ends in this round. In fact, I don't even know if that's possible, barring unexpected results like draws and no contests, which of course would, or any last minute fight cancellations, which of course would uh result in that fighter, all the fighters involved being cast as losers. But I think the wheel might have taken a week off here. I think that means that uh, Troz posted in the threads that's got to him, struck a nerve, and he's gone into hiding. The wheel, I think. So gone soft. I think the wheel. Anyway, all that leaves me to say is good luck with in this game. Good luck with your predictions on Tapology, and if you've got any bets on this card, good luck with those as well. And just try and stay cool in this heat. I don't know what it's like in America right now, where I'm assuming most of you are from, but over here in the UK, we're boiling our fucking bollocks off. So just try and stay cool, stay hydrated, don't die, and um, yeah, well, even more important than that, uh, best of luck for the game. But until next week, so long for now.